section of today's manhwa begins on the continent of Xuantian, and more specifically in the territory of the Star Soul sect. The students face the path of climbing the mountain.
Next, we watch as one of the students from the crowd suddenly opens her eyes. She has long hair and amber eyes. After a couple of moments, by his reaction, you can understand that he does not understand what is happening. Looking at the amazing views around, he is trying to understand what kind of place he just ended up in. As soon as our main character tried to understand what place he ended up in, he began to experience phantom pains, and he was forced to grab his head from this unpleasant feeling. Our main character remembers that the last episode of his life was when he was playing League of Legends on his huge screen, and threatened his forest player that he was the scum of society. Fragments of our protagonist's memories continue to flash through his head. He remembers everything from the beginning of his birth, how his parents were announced that they had a boy. Even the smallest memories flash through our main character's head. He remembers how he accidentally spied on a girl who was taking hot baths, but he was declassified. After a couple of moments, it begins to dawn on our main character that all this is not his memory. Because in the next fragment, he declares to his mother that he wants to cultivate. The mother of our main character in his childhood tells him that they have no money, so he cannot start cultivation. At this moment, the puzzle in the guy's head comes together, and he realizes that he has been reborn. And the place that is right now in front of him is the Xuantian continent, a world in which the art of war is valued. There are a huge number of people who want to join the sect at any cost. Even though the sect that thousands of students are so desperately eager to join is newly created, it remains a chance to have a better social status and get out of poverty. Star Soul Sect is a young sect founded just 2 weeks ago. The strength of the sect leader is unknown to anyone, but today is the first certification for those wishing to become members of the sect. Our main character realizes that after being reborn in another world, he has nothing with him at all. But the situation becomes livelier. He needs to try to change the game parameters from the inside. But our main character's walk along this crowd, as well as his thoughts, are abruptly interrupted after a crowd of students suddenly starts running somewhere, saying that someone is leaving. Our main character immediately turns in the direction where the students are running in order to understand what's going on. Meanwhile, 2 people appear in front of them at incredible speed. After these 2 incredibly quickly appeared before climbing the mountain, the dem gradually begins to dissipate. But we already understand that in front of us is some kind of waifu. This girl introduces herself by the name Luo Yuxue. She states that she is the founder of the Star Soul sect, and today she will choose students regardless of their abilities, age, and so on. Everyone around immediately begins to rejoice after they hear that nothing is required of them. Only our main character thinks after this because this is all very strange. A moment later, the guy is sent back to his earthly memories because the founder of this sect looks just like the stars from the melodramas that are constantly on TV. But suddenly the girl continues her speech saying that there is one nuance, because there is one single condition in order to be accepted into the sect of Star Souls as a student. Next, the girl states that if a student can get 10,000 low-level spiritual stones in an hour, then she will give them to the sect and will definitely accept them. Absolutely everyone around is in shock. After this incredibly difficult condition, everyone is wondering if they heard correctly, because transferring 10,000 spiritual stones to the sect seems like some kind of joke, and 1 stone will last for a month. Everyone immediately changes their opinion about this sect because their sect is just a bunch of scammers, and the charming founder of the sect, a beauty, definitely doesn't change anything. While all the other students except our main character turn around and leave, the guy is thinking about whether there is a black market in this world. Rebirth in another world is no joke. He was immediately given a quest. Immediately after the guy receives his first order, a system notification sounds, notifying the guy that the invincible spendthrift system has been activated. The guy is surprised. The guy continues to look at the system window in shock, because he couldn't imagine that there would be such cheats here. But the name of this system didn't give the guy anything, and he wanted to understand better. In response to this, the new system of our protagonist tells him that the name fully reflects its essence, and while the guy spends his money, he becomes stronger, and the system will take care of the rest. The system continues to inform the guy that a certain amount that needs to be spent per day is converted into points. If the amount is not spent, they will be deducted a certain amount. The next system window informs our main character that spendthrift points can be used to improve the environment, skills, extract special items, and more. Our main character immediately realizes that he cannot spend as much as he wants, and on what he wants, he understands that he must be rich. But he is definitely not stupid like some billionaires. The first task from the system to our main character is to join the sect of Star Souls. As a reward, he will receive 100 waster points, but if he fails, he will lose them. Despite the fact that our main character was very lucky to receive the system on the very first day of his rebirth, he is dissatisfied with the fact that the system interface was chosen for him without taking into account his tastes. A man standing next to the founder tells her that all the students before her were from poor families, so she definitely won't be able to recruit students for herself if she deliberately makes life difficult for them. However, the girl herself replies that she understands all this, but if they don't want to join her sect, then it's not her problem. Let her father understand that nothing can be done about it. At this moment, this girl does not understand at all why her father forced her to open a sect, citing the fact that it would improve her spiritual state, but in fact it only slows down the process. Next, we see from the flashback how the girl stands in front of her father named Luo Wuming, who is the head of the High Star sect. The father did not know that his daughter was the goddess of the Holy Land. Even though this girl could be reborn again, ascension is incredibly important to her, so she must continue to practice non-stop to improve her cultivation level. The girl begins to list in her head the various sects that are located on different islands. When she passes all the tests, she intends to return to the higher kingdom and destroy the master. After a couple of moments, Luo Yushui turns around and starts to leave, telling Bai Lao to leave too because no one can bring them 10,000 spiritual stones, and even if I can, they won't give them. But suddenly the voice of our main character stops the departure of this girl. He informs her that due to the fact that the sect is completely new, he is ready to give 100,000 stones for her maintenance. Immediately after this girl hears this harsh statement, she immediately turns around to see who is going to make her sect such a generous offer of 10 times more. After these two turn around to see the local Elon Musk, they see our main character in front of them. They ask him again if he is ready to give them 100,000. A couple of moments after our main character hears this, he closes his eyes and remembers his very recent remark that only a complete idiot would agree to such a thing. However, despite the fact that the guy himself believed that only an idiot was capable of such an act, he stood in a confident pose, held out one spirit stone, and replied that he would really do it. A couple of moments after this guy is seriously about to become that same idiot, he sends this waifu an incredibly rare spiritual stone judging by its appearance. Immediately after this small spiritual stone reaches the hands of the founder, she is very surprised because it can really be valued at 100,000 spiritual stones. After the girl realizes that our main character really did it, she understands that there really are those in the world who so easily part with such incredible value. However, this girl should not show such emotions, so after clearing her throat, she asks the guy if he is sure that he wants to join the sect, because they don't even have a place to stay. But in response to this, our main character, smiling, informs this girl that she has nothing to worry about because he can simply hire workers to immediately build a mansion for them. The girl continues to try in every possible way to create doubts for our main character. She reminds him that her sect does not have any resources, so they cannot offer him anything. But even this news does not intimidate local investor Elon Musk. He replies that she needn't panic because he can buy all the necessary resources so they won't have any problems. Each answer of our main character causes damage to this girl. The guy begins to feel as if this girl is trying with all her might to dissuade him from joining her sect. A couple of moments later, after all attempts to dissuade our main hero from this girl end in failure, she begins to tightly clench her fist in anger because of the situation. Next, this founder of a young sect wonders where this crazy guy even came from, because he is going to buy everything she needs, which leaves her completely confused. The patience of this waifu runs out and she approaches our main character and begins to shake him with all her might, asking him to shut up. She asks him if he understands that he is not welcome in the secti. But after a couple of moments, this girl regains control of herself again, inviting our main character to discuss on the shore. Even if he joins the sect, she will not care about his development. The girl continues to do her best to dissuade our main character from joining her sect. She warns him that he will not learn anything from her, and he will do everything completely on his own. Judging by the reaction of our main character, this girl finally managed to make him doubt at least a little. He asks the girl in surprise what she just said. Apparently, the girl in front of our main character finally managed to make him really think about whether he wants to join this sect, because he is starting to think about something. Seeing the reaction of the guy in front of her, the girl immediately begins to rejoice because the guy finally began to waver in his decision. As she expected, she was finally able to scare him away from the sect. But a moment later, this guy again tells the founder that she shouldn't worry about it, because he will complete the task and will not be bound by any obligations. This is the best option. Immediately after this girl realizes that all her attempts to dissuade the guy were in vain, she sharply falls to the ground because she has completely run out of ideas. Her servant rushes to her. The guy immediately rushed to this girl, repeating to her that she shouldn't worry about anything, and the girl was shocked that the guy just gave 100,000 spiritual stones. She doesn't understand anything. Luo Yuxiu decides that this guy was definitely sent by heaven itself to torment her. Meanwhile, she begins to pull out her magic weapon out of nowhere for no apparent reason.
Immediately after this girl's magic sword was summoned, she rushed at our main character, choosing the path of aggression, and her servant tries to calm her down because he alone fulfilled all the conditions.
Meanwhile, local Elon Musk is in complete confusion because after he agreed to provide this sect with absolutely everything they needed, they immediately wanted to kill him instead of thanking him. Immediately after this girl's servant manages to calm her down, she finally informs our main character that from this moment on, he becomes a follower of her sect. After our main character finally manages to complete the entire task, his quest is completed, and he receives 100 spendthrift points. And for the fact that he spent 100,000, he receives another 100 points. Immediately after our main character immediately receives 200 wastage points, he begins to scoff and understand that now he most likely understands the principle of operation of his new system. Despite the fact that right now the guy does not yet know how to properly use the spendthrift points that he just received, he understands that the best solution is to accumulate them a little. Immediately after this guy decides to save his spender points, he turns to the system to ask if there are other tasks and how else he can earn these points. 2 more notifications appear in front of the guy. He understands that he must find all the options himself. He is reminded that the amount spent does not depend on the points received. This has nothing to do with it. Continuing to go to the founder, the guy declares that while he is her only student, can he say that he is her personal follower? But the girl replies that there is no such thing in such a sect. Having turned on the tsundere mode, the girl realizes that despite the fact that she said that she would not do anything, in fact, she agreed with her father that she would be responsible for her students. After the guy finally realized that the essence of his system is to spend as much money and resources as possible, he asks the girl to simply name the number she needs. Even though this girl said that there is no personal follower status in this sect, our main character was going to simply buy this status by saying that he has enough money. But a moment later, this waifu realizes that she simply cannot overlook such an interesting offer, so she prepares to voice the price of the status. The waifu further reports that the price of becoming a personal follower will cost him another 100,000 spiritual stones of the highest level. As soon as she receives them, she will make an exception for him. Apparently, such a huge price made our main character seriously surprised. He immediately stepped back a little and asked the girl what she had just said. A couple of moments after this girl announced the price of 100,000 top-quality spiritual stones, an awkward silence hung between the three, and the guy continued to be shocked. After this girl realized that most likely this amount of resources causes such a reaction in our main character, she concluded that this guy is simply too tough. Laughing, she asked the guy in front of her where his self-confidence went. She understands that 100,000 top-level spiritual stones will be difficult for even a third-rate sect to collect. But after a couple of moments, a local billionaire suddenly asks this girl if this is really all that is required of him to become a personal follower. The girl shocks again. Immediately after this guy once again makes it clear that he has money for this, he begins to reach into the inner pocket of his robe in order to get something. A moment later, this crazy rich man again pulls out the spiritual stone and hands it to the girl. He declares that its value is estimated at 500,000 top-level spiritual stones. He continues telling the founder of the new sect that he can accept the remaining 400,000 high-quality spiritual stones as a gift from her new personal follower. After the guy realizes that he is very lucky with the system, he also understands that spending money is his genius ability, and he should not miss the opportunity to buy status. Immediately after our main character, the investor, once again manages to spend a fortune, the system rewards him for spending his money wisely, so he receives another 200 points. Meanwhile, this waifu begins to shake, because she understands that she has just received 500,000 top-level spiritual stones. For that kind of money, any founder would call him a great ancestor. This girl continues to be completely bewildered by our main character. She can just grab her head and exhale loudly, because all her attempts to scare away this guy are unsuccessful. But despite the complete reluctance to do this girl extends her hand and declares that she keeps her word. So he declares that from now on, our main character is her personal follower. The guy does not understand why they are handing him a sword, but then the girl tells him that now this Xuanqing sword is now his. She asks the guy to accept it as a gift from her mentor. Meanwhile, this founder begins to understand that if anyone finds out about this, her reputation will immediately come to an end. She can already imagine everyone around talking about taking a personal follower. A couple of moments after the guy received the sword, 2 notifications informed him that he is the great god of wastefulness, so he cannot accept anything from others. He lost 20 points. Immediately after the guy realized this cruel truth, he immediately took the system window in front of him in order to tell his system that he was having a hard time dealing with it. In order to get out of this situation and get his extravagance points back, the guy immediately came up with a plan, after which he sharply fell to one knee in front of his mentor. Immediately after this, we watched as the guy, bowing before his mentor, gave her her own sword. This greatly surprised the girl because she had just handed it to him. Looking down at her personal follower, she had only one question. She asked the guy who worshipped her with her own sword, "What the hell does this gesture mean?" The guy answered his master that her student does not deserve to carry her gift with him yet, so he cannot accept it. But if she instructs, he continues saying that she can sell it. Immediately after this guy finishes his line, his mentor, snatching the sword from his hands, asks him if he really thinks that everything in this world can be bought. But even in response to this, our main character had something to say. He told the girl that if she does not want to sell her sword, then she can simply take it back to her. Despite the fact that at that moment this girl was pretending that she was a tsundere, it dawned on her that her student was quite intelligent, because this sword was a 7th level spiritual weapon, and he returned it. Immediately after the mentor took her 7th level Zanpakuto back, she jumped incredibly high and moved away from these two. It was clear from afar that she was unhappy. Watching the mentor of the young sect fly away, the guy asked Laobai if the mentor was really not very smart, because if there is money, then it means it needs to be spent. Hearing our main character's remark, her servant only warned our main character to speak more quietly, because this girl can still hear him despite the distance. Meanwhile, this bearded man could not understand how a mere mortal like this guy got such a huge amount of money with which he is capable of so many things. A man also understands that this miss is always incredibly calm. No matter what happens, she never openly shows her emotions. This prevented her from further improving in strength. Next, this man realized that now the one who can truly change her will be next to her. Then he called our main character and asked him to follow him so that he could show him the sect. After a couple of moments, the course of events suddenly moves to the skies, and we watch as the servant of the young founder leads our main character into the sect, thanks to a flying sword. Apparently, our main character is not very interested in this flight, because we notice how he is counting the birds that fly past them in order to pass the time. These birds suddenly begin to like our main character, so they decide to make a nest on his head, realizing that everything is too boring. The guy decides to communicate with his system. The first thing our main character is going to ask is that in this world there are spiritual roots, talents, and enlightenment. He asks how he can use his spendthrift points. In response to this, a window appears in front of the guy. We finally find out his name, Ye Feng. He is 18 years old, he has no martial arts or abilities, he has 400 points, and today's item is a magical talisman. Next, our main character's system begins to explain to him that on the continent, power is divided into 9 spheres. The sphere of the spiritual sea, the movement of qi, the fusion of qi, the sphere of the base, and the core. The system continues to read the guide Yefeng, saying that there are still spheres of the abode of the immortals, the primordial spirit, the sphere of depth, and the sphere of disasters. Each sphere has 9 steps. Yefeng continues to absorb the entire flow of information in surprise. The spiritual sea sphere has a transition to each stage that costs 10 points of waste, and in the qi sphere, it will cost 100 points. But when it comes to the sphere of qi fusion, the transition to each stage of perfection will cost a whole 1,000 points of waste, which greatly surprises our protagonist. Having heard all this, the guy asks the system if it seems to her that this is too much, because in order to advance at least within the sphere of qi fusion, each time you will need to pay 1,000 points. After our main character realizes that the prices for promotion are not very happy, he decides to explore the wasteful supermarket by clicking on it with his index finger. At this moment, a window opens in front of the guy with various spiritual herbs, spiritual minerals, martial arts techniques, magical fields, magical talismans, and elixirs with potions. Yefeng reads that the price of the jars is 100 points, 90% chance of dropping a first-grade item, 80% chance of dropping a second-grade item. The probability does not change with increasing strength. Studying this extravagance market, the guy can't help but note that it's all a little expensive, but if there is an opportunity to get 9th grade spiritual grass, then it's worth the expense. Maybe you'll get lucky. But before relying on his 10% to obtain rare herbs, the guy suddenly thinks about why all these different herbs and various minerals of various levels are needed. The system immediately explains to the guy that opening a jar of various items is also regarded as a wasteful action. The higher the level of the item received, the more points. The system continues by explaining to our main character that in this case special laws apply. If he receives a level 9 pill, he can trample it in front of the alchemist. This will be considered wasteful. Having heard from the system that in this way he can get extravagance points, he understands that he can provoke other people, because he is just an ordinary person capable of this. A possible scenario also immediately appears in the guy's head. What could happen if he starts showing off in front of other cultivators by trampling on expensive pills? The scenario is not very funny. Immediately after Ye Feng hears about all these ways to earn extravagance points, he understands that most likely they still need to be used, because even in this way you can earn. While the two finally seem to arrive at their destination, Ye Feng orders the system to spend 90 points, because he needs to become a 9th stage cultivator of the spiritual sea realm. Immediately after our main character decides to use 90 system points to gain a cultivation level, energy begins to appear around his body, and he begins the breakthrough process. The servant to the mentor of our protagonist cannot help but notice that right now his passenger has opened the realm of the spiritual sea simply by doing absolutely nothing. The energy around our main character continues to continuously form, and the mentor's servant cannot understand how this is even possible, because the guy was simply counting the birds that flew by. One more moment and the bearded man realizes that this spiritual energy, which was enough for several people to open the realm of the spiritual sea, the guy's amount of energy is too high. The bearded man, continuing his observation, realizes that now the guy's amount of energy is 20 times greater than the amount of his energy. He is meeting such a genius for the first time. A couple of moments after the process of our main character's transition to a new level ends, he slowly opens his eyes and sighs, because a lot of energy rushed through his body. But after the guy opens his eyes, he finds himself on some beach. He wonders if the opening of the spiritual sea sphere takes so long. He is a little surprised. But judging by the state of our main character, this is not very difficult for him, so he decides to continue no matter how much time it takes him, because he is just resting. Meanwhile, the man who leads Ye Fen into his new sect cannot stop being surprised by the fact that the energy of this guy who does nothing continues to intensify more and more. Next, this man with a beard simply cannot believe his eyes, because judging by the spiritual energy that continues to intensify further, the guy apparently broke through to the 2nd stage. Opening the realm of the spiritual sea is tantamount to building a foundation, which is an extremely important procedure for any self-respecting cultivator who is engaged in opening the realm. This process requires not only a suitable atmosphere for opening, but also various pills to stimulate progress, and even after opening the spiritual sea realm, it will take time to stabilize. However, the servant of our protagonist's mentor realizes that he does not feel that Ye Feng took any pills, and all this is happening on the flying blade. No matter how resilient our protagonist is, it is difficult to maintain calm under such conditions, not to mention the atmosphere and vibe required to open the spiritual sea realm. The flight on the flying blade of this bearded man does not cease to amaze him, because a couple more moments and he again feels how the energy of our protagonist is again intensifying stronger and stronger. Looking at Ye Fen, he can't believe his eyes because judging by the increase in his spiritual energy, there is only one option. He has just entered the 3rd stage of the spiritual sea realm. However, despite the fact that this guy had only crossed 3 stages in the development of cultivation, this guy's energy continued to grow. He moved to the 4th stage, and then immediately to the 5th. The growth of our protagonist's cultivation level continued to grow mercilessly. One more moment, and the guy who flies on a damn flying sword reaches the 6th level of cultivation. But a few more long moments pass before our main character finally moves to the peak of the 9th sphere of the spiritual sea, which finally finishes off the servant of our main character's mentor. Next, we watch as our main character finally opens his eyes again and realizes that the process of moving to a new level of cultivation has finally ended. He finally sighs. Ye Feng understood that the speed of overcoming the stages of cultivation is as slow as downloading Fortnite from the internet for only $2. He hoped that all this would be instantaneous. Next, our main character, turning back, asks Bai Lao if opening the sphere of the spiritual sea and breaking through to the peak of the 9th stage took him 10 minutes, would his mentor consider him worthless? But such a question only causes surprise in this man. He does not understand what this guy is talking about, because if our main character calls himself worthless, then what is he like compared to him? After all, when he had enough time and resources to practice, it took him 8 months of work to break through to the peak of the 9th stage of the spiritual sea realm. More progress depends on skills. Next, Bai Lao, scratching his beard, replies that now he understands why Ye Feng said that he does not need any instructions, because it seems that he himself has already mastered powerful cultivation techniques. But the expression on the face of our main character immediately makes it clear to Bai Lao that he doesn't understand what we're talking about at all. He asks him what cultivation techniques we're talking about in general. Our main character adds that he has neither cultivation techniques nor spiritual roots, but in response to this bearded man just throws up his hand saying that this is impossible. Immediately after, this bearded man, convinced of his conclusions, tells the guy that without a spiritual root or technique it is impossible to upgrade so quickly. He puts his hand on his head. But immediately after, this servant of our main character's mentor finishes the process of diagnosing our main character, he abruptly moves away from him because he is very surprised by the result. Bai Lao's surprise is due to the fact that our protagonist really does not have spiritual roots with the help of which other cultivators are strengthened. Ye Feng replies that he did not intend to deceive him. Despite the fact that our main character really does not have spiritual roots, he understands that he has discovered a spiritual sea, or, to be more precise, several seas at once in 10 minutes. Then this man gives up and understands that the mentor will best deal with all this. After all, this is not his student, so let the headache go to the founder of the sect herself. The course of events ends abruptly when we finally say goodbye to the sect's territory. The journey was so long that Ye Feng had already reached the peak of the 9th realm of the spiritual sea. The place looks very nice. The founder of the sect asks Bai Lao why they are so slow. She is told that her disciple decided that he urgently needed to make a breakthrough in his level of cultivation, right on the way. Bai Lao continues saying that the spiritual sea opened by Ye Feng is 20 times larger than her. Moreover, he immediately reached the 9th stage. Bai Luo adds that he has no spiritual root. Immediately after, this girl hears that, despite the fact that our main character does not have a spiritual root, he was able to immediately reach the 9th peak of the spiritual sea. She becomes wary. She simply cannot believe her words, so she immediately gets up from her seat in order to go up to our main character to check if this is all true. Meanwhile, the bearded man is huddled in a corner, because while this guy only needed 10 minutes for such a breakthrough, he spent 8 whole months on this in his youth. Analyzing the body of our main character, she tells the guy that he has no spiritual roots at all. She asks him how he managed to open the spiritual sea and reach its peak. But after our main character tries to answer a question to his mentor, they are abruptly interrupted by saying that the Full Moon sect has arrived for a visit. They ask if the head of the sect can meet the guests. Moving outside, we observe how several representatives of another sect actually came. The person standing in front asks if the leader is ashamed to appear in public because she has no disciples. After this girl hears ridicule about herself, she gets angry. She thinks that one super strange student was not enough for her, and she visited some more. She is very angry that they will not leave her in silence. A couple of moments later, the sect in which our main character belongs leaves the building in full force, asking the crowd why they are here. They ask her if she is the founder of the sect, Luo Yuxue. The man continues saying that he heard that those who want to join her sect must bring 10,000 spiritual stones. So he brought his disciples to look at those who could do this. Immediately after the girl hears why these idiots came, she looks at her only student and realizes that if she had no one, then there would be no problems. But after a couple of moments, an idea comes to the girl's head, because if this crowd can defeat our main character, perhaps it can force him to leave her sect, leaving her alone. Turning to her student, the mentor informs Ye Feng that the opponents are right in front of them, and if they do not respond to aggression, then what kind of respect can we talk about? Then they need to respond. At this moment, Ye Feng realizes that this is just an excellent opportunity to use the Thunder Talisman. He asks the master for permission to do this, for which he immediately receives it. The crowd agrees that the head of the Star Soul sect should not help his disciple, so that they give the kids the opportunity to exchange experiences. Ye Feng calmly agrees to this. A couple of moments after our main character goes out to fight with a whole crowd, he immediately takes out his Thunder Talisman in order to teach this crowd of idiots a lesson instantly and quickly. However, this was not about just one Thunder Talisman of our main character, because after a couple of moments a whole mountain of these talismans appears on the ground. The guy's opponents cannot believe their eyes. The man understands that these talismans emanate the aura of artifacts of the first level of the 9th rank, which means that each talisman can hit with the force of the 9th stage of the sea sphere. The mentor of this crowd of idiots understands that no matter how many of his students are there, they definitely cannot win. Meanwhile, Ye Feng sends his army of Thunder Talismans into the crowd. The opponents of our main character immediately begin to panic, because if the Thunder Talisman touches them, they will break into fried chicken. They ask the elder to detain him. While this crowd of losers are trying to save their lives, Ye Feng feels like a real giant master of the world. He orders the fuel to explode in front of him, and he really likes such games. Our main character was not joking when he ordered everything that was in front of him to explode, because then we watch a series of explosions. The guy's mentor and her servant are completely shocked by what is happening. These three understand that these are the first-level talismans of the 9th rank, and only one of them is worth 1,000 low-level spirit stones. If the strength matches the strength of a cultivator, then what is this weirdo doing? Meanwhile, we continue to watch as the crowd that was supposed to beat our main character continues to fly throughout the entire area of this sect from these numerous explosions. The students beg their master to leave because this psycho took everything too literally. The second one shouts that he can't do it anymore, and the three of them will never cope with so many talismans. After our main character wins the easiest victory of his life, he realizes that in front of him are some noobs who are no good. Meanwhile, the girl looks at him thoughtfully. A couple of moments after the guy finishes this fight in his favor, he turns to his mentor like a psychopath. She asks him what's wrong with his look. Suddenly, this girl begins to wonder what the guy might think about the fact that she chickened out and sent him to fight 3 disciples of the Full Moon sect without caring one bit about him. While the girl decides that she will show her greatness to her disciple next time, several hours pass. Yefeng still continues to blow things up. These 3 losers continue to run away. Yefeng, who looks like a real psycho, shouts that he is having a lot of fun, but he is just warmed up. He orders his opponents to sing songs of pain and suffering. Incredible strength and fun are seething in him. The disciples of this mentor are completely exhausted. They throw themselves at the feet of their mentor, running away from the next explosions. They beg their master to save them from this nightmare. Meanwhile, the master of these losers understands that this is a real frenzy. It is not surprising that the requirements for joining this sect are simply hellish. Today he was shown his place. Immediately after this founder of his sect realizes that he is beyond his strength, our main character apologizes to Law for disturbing them. Next time they will not come empty-handed. After this man realized that they had nothing more to do here, he continued his attempts to leave the territory of this incredibly rich sect. His student continued to roar while holding his leg, but a couple of moments later, another explosion occurred under the feet of this mentor, which sent both him and his poor student flying, who will have nightmares about these explosions. This time it was the work of the founder of our protagonist's guild. She clearly had no intention of letting go of this sect that decided to just bother them and walk away with their tails between their legs. Soaring into the sky, she asked this man and his students who they took her for, because they came here without an invitation and thought that they could leave like that. After a couple of moments, these cowards realized that they were dealing with a cultivator who was located in the primordial spirit realm, and their master was just a core realm peak cultivator, so they were finished. Next, the mentor of our protagonist put forward the conditions that she would release them all from her territory only after each of them lost his hand from her attacks. But this crowd of losers, led by the main loser, had no chance against her, so the only thing they could do was agree to the conditions and lose their hands. Immediately after they agreed, the mentor of our protagonist prayerfully deprived all 4 of them of her hands in the blink of an eye. Her attacks were very fast and accurate. After this waifu finished administering justice, she ordered all of them to get away from her territory. The head of this sect, who lost his hand, clearly harbored a grudge against her for this. A couple of moments after this girl finished, she turned around and walked towards our main character. Yefeng did not expect that his mentor would be so cruel. Immediately after she approached our main character, she asked him to deal with his talismans that he had scattered everywhere. The girl also thought that she again failed to drive the guy away. After a couple of moments, our main character, realizing how much work he was entrusted with, asked his mentor if she could help him at least a little with this small cleaning. The guy's mentor immediately asked what he needed help with. In response to this, Yefeng immediately took out more thunder talismans, saying that he still had 9,000, and that was too much for him. Immediately after Yefeng said this to his mentor, he immediately decided to prove it to her by calling on a whole bunch of talismans that he was talking about. The girl at first had no words to answer anything. She mentally tried to calm down because she shouldn't undermine her image of a goddess. If he doesn't take these talismans seriously, then nothing can be done. She tried to stop being angry. After a couple of moments, our main character's mentor finally decided to agree to accept all these thunder talismans. She stretched out her hands and decided to check how long he could hold out. Immediately after our main character shared the thunder talismans with his mentor, the two seriously began to explode as many as 9,000 thunder talismans, each of which was worth 1,000 stones. Next, we watched as these two sat on the roof of the sect's building, throwing down these talismans. By this time, they had already exploded as many as 3,124 thunder talismans. It looked quite beautiful. The picture that was in front of our main character's mentor at that moment made her stare deeply at these countless explosions that continued to explode and create a beautiful picture. This sight made this girl seriously immerse herself, or to be more precise, she began to immerse herself in her past, because all this probably could remind her of something important. Someone hands this girl fireworks, saying that she constantly practices and does nothing at all other than that. So she was offered to distract herself by looking at the fireworks. Despite the fact that this girl really practiced very often this time, she still agreed to watch it, but she warned that she did not have much time for this. The girl standing next to the future founder of the sect asked her sister not to be so boring, because everyone needs a break from endless practices, and she doesn't know how to have fun at all. This girl continued to tell Miss Luo that otherwise she would remain busy all her life, and in her declining years, she would not even have anything to remember because she did nothing except practice. Despite the fact that this girl primarily pursued the goal of becoming as strong as possible, she still agreed with this idea because it is correct, and they only live once. After a couple of moments, we moved to the same servant of Miss Lo, who decided to just sleep peacefully in his chambers. At this time, he tried to sleep soundly to regain his strength. Even a rather funny sleep mask and earplugs did not help him, because some strange explosions made their way into his consciousness and were powerful enough to enter his sleep. Suddenly, his sound sleep is interrupted by explosions of our main character, which he saw live quite recently. Now they come to him even in his sleep. They really interfere with his sleep, irritating his sleep. Immediately after he dreams of these explosions, he instantly jumps up from his bed because he heard the explosions. He began to shake his head to find enemies who are advancing. Waking up completely and removing his mask from his face, he listened to these sounds and then realized that this was the sound of heavenly thunder talismans that for some reason exploded outside. This bearded man was very puzzled. He immediately began to get dressed as quickly as possible in order to understand why these talismans explode. They could be attacked. A couple of moments later, this man sees a mentor who explodes the talismans of heavenly thunder one after another. Holding his head with both hands, he asks them, "What the hell are they doing?" The girl, seeing Bai Lao, is surprised by the fact that he lives so close. Meanwhile, she continues to throw out one heavenly thunder talisman after another, thereby provoking explosions. Next, she turns to Bai Lao to explain to him that right now she, along with our main character, is busy destroying these heavenly thunder talismans, which is why he hears this. Meanwhile, Ye Feng invites Bai Lao to join them, because it's really fun, and he and his mentor are already a little tired of throwing them into the air, because they've already blown up 3,000. However, Bai Lao only hits our main character on the head, saying that this is some kind of nonsense because one heavenly thunder talisman of the first level of the 9th rank costs a whole 1,000 low-level spiritual stones. And even if the sect is rich and prosperous, it is impossible to be so wasteful. But a moment later, he sees Miss Luo doing the same. He does not understand how they can do this. After a couple of moments, our main character decides to interrupt Bai Lao's indignation by handing him a ring of spiritual spirits, with which he has used it not for the first time to pay. The man is surprised. Ye Feng informs Bai Lao that he is no longer young, and his body needs more rest, and these 100,000 top-quality spiritual stones will help him calm down and quickly fall asleep peacefully. Bai Lao, after he sees so many spiritual stones in one ring, cannot believe his eyes. While tears are rolling down his eyes, he asks the guy if he is mocking him. A moment later, Bai Lao begins to tear his robe, showing us the form of Arnold Schwarzenegger in his best years. He shouts that despite the fact that he is old, his muscles remember everything. Next, this incredibly muscular man shows a like and says that if they still decide to get rid of all these heavenly thunder talismans, they can completely rely on him. Immediately after this, we watch as this man begins to throw all these heavenly thunder talismans away at incredible speed. Clothes mysteriously appear on his body, while Ye Feng looks in surprise at Bai Lao, who continues to throw thunder talismans at incredible speed. The guy receives a notification that he received 100 points for not showing excessive frugality. Immediately after Ye Feng realized that he had received as much as 100 extravagance points for all this, he decided that next time he would definitely pay Bai Lao a lot more spiritual stones. At this point, the course of events accelerates sharply until the night. We watch as the entire city falls asleep and incredible darkness comes, which only decorates this world of cultivators. But after a couple of moments, the course of events accelerates once again, but already before the new morning comes, and a typical representative of the League of Legends playing in the forest already notifies everyone about this. Next, we return to the territory of the sect in which our main character belongs. We see in front of us a dark silhouette and a huge pit in front of it, which was made by thunder talismans. Although the old man lived a long life, He never thought that one day he would be so severely exhausted due to throwing talismans. Approximately 50 kilograms of this guy's muscles disappeared. Pointing to his bicep, Bai Lao told our main character that if he needed anything else in the future, she could call him, because despite the fact that he is old, he is still quite strong. Meanwhile, Miss Luo, who is watching all this, thinks that despite the fact that there are only 3 of them in the sect, for some reason she has a bad feeling about this. Next, the girl expresses her surprise that Bai Lao, who is one of the 8 elders of the top star sect, just like that, sold himself for 100,000 top-quality spiritual stones. The man who became a frail guy replies that the point here is not at all about the spiritual stones and not about their quality, because in fact we are talking about the dignity of the elders. Ye Feng watches in surprise. Meanwhile, our protagonist's waste system notifies him that he has completely used up today's waste product, so he is rewarded with 1,000 points. Ye Feng was surprised that he was given 1,000 points. He wondered if he could now break through to the sphere of Qi movement. Out of 14 10 points, only 5 10 would remain. Then he could open 5 jars by trying his luck. But suddenly our main character's jar juggling stopped abruptly after he remembered that they now only have 3 members in the sect. So an idea came to his mind. Immediately after this, Ye Feng realized that if he only relied on Bai Lao, he would not be able to maintain a high level of wastefulness, so he needed some variety. Next, Ye Feng thought about the fact that if he had fellow practitioners, the efficiency of farming waste points would increase so much. These thoughts intoxicated our protagonist. Next, our main character realized that in the future, he was going to help his founder with the development of the sect, because he could easily bear all the expenses for this without losing anything. After such thoughts come to the mind of our main character, he realizes that spending money no longer seems such a hard task. On the contrary, he is incredibly happy with his ability. After a couple of moments, we move to a huge gate on the territory of the sect in which our main character belongs. Some man in a blue robe is trying to reach out to those inside. Immediately after this guy waits for the door to be opened for him, he asks to know if they are still recruiting new students and followers for their new sect. But after this guy enters the territory of this sect, he sees a not very presentable sight. In front of him is only a swarm of participants and a huge pit from explosions in the middle of this temple. This guy who came to get into the sect clearly has critical thinking because he immediately understands that everything here looks as if a bomb had recently dropped here. Next, this potential new student meets an old man who looks like he is ready to go to the afterlife at any moment. This is probably not very good. Immediately after this, the founder of this sect catches the eye of this potential new student. He immediately understands that here, by the look of her, jokes with her end very badly. Next, this guy finally reaches with his gaze our main character, who looks like an acoustic. He immediately understands that this man does not look particularly burdened with intelligence. After this guy enters this territory of the new sect and looks at it all, he realizes that it all does not inspire confidence. He wonders if it's too late for him to just leave here. Meanwhile, Ye Feng begins to dance with joy. He answers this guy that everything is correct, and the Star Soul sect is indeed still accepting new students into the ranks of their young sect. Ye Feng, continuing to dance, tells this guy that if he can transfer 10,000 low-level spiritual stones to the sect, then he can really become its Sigma follower. Continuing to dance in every possible way and showing his joy, Ye Feng continues to tell the guy that then, if he can transfer 100,000 to the sect, he can become a personal follower of the founder. Ye Feng runs closer and closer to this guy in order to introduce himself to him as the first follower of the sect and the main personal follower of the founder of this incredible sect. After our main character tried his best to make a good impression, he was looking forward to this guy saying that he has no money, but in this case, he will just pay for everything. Our protagonist's system reminded him that such behavior is not considered wasteful unless he proves otherwise. At first glance, he felt some kind of kinship. Our main character felt as if the guy who came was his younger brother, whom he could not find for so long, and therefore it would be nice to help him financially, as any older brother would do. Immediately after our main character tried to change the mind of his wasteful system with this train of thought, she didn't even know at first how to respond to this. A couple of moments later, another system notification recognized the behavior of our protagonist as reasonable. He was advised to control the consumption of spiritual stones. Ye Feng was surprised that it worked. Meanwhile, this guy who came was thinking that even before he came up here, he heard from people that the criteria for joining this sect are very unusual. Not age, not skills, but just money. After this guy decided to come personally, he realized that this is how it all is, because for 100,000 spiritual stones, you can acquire the status of a personal follower without doing anything. Immediately after this guy with blue hair realized that the rumors about this sect were true, and everything here was built on money, He began to turn around to leave but was abruptly stopped by Ye Feng. Next, our main character abruptly took this guy into a wrestling hold in order to advise him in a friendly manner not to leave and to think about his decision even better before just leaving. But after a couple of moments, this guy receives a message from some grandfather. He asks him to stay here and pay this money in order to become a follower of this sect. The voice in Wu Feng's head continues telling him that after he is done with one person, he will come back for him, and if he stays here, he will be calm. This is where the message ends. Immediately after the message ends, this guy looks down. He is forced to do everything his grandfather told him, so very soon he will say goodbye to his money. A couple of moments later, we move to that same grandfather. He understands that in the sect founded by his beloved daughter Luo Wu Ming, old Bai Tianhong is also there, so Wu Feng will be safe. After Wu Feng stops after he decides to leave, our main character immediately hugs him, telling his mentor to take him in because he is very cute. Even though Wu Feng has no idea why his grandfather thinks it's better for him to stay in this strange place, he still decides to listen to his grandfather's words without second thoughts. After this guy stays, the founder of this sect informs him that if he can bring 10,000 low-level spiritual stones in an hour, then she will accept him. Next, this girl wonders why Ye Feng believes that he has the right to choose the students she should accept. This thought annoys her because she does not remember giving him such permission. Miss Luo was very annoyed by this because since he is now also part of the sect, she must bear responsibility for his words. Fortunately, this guy does not seem to be particularly eager to stay here. A couple of moments later, we watch as Wu Feng hands the founder 10,000 low-level spiritual stones and asks her to accept them. He understands that if grandfather asks him to stay, there is a reason for this. The founder is completely shocked after she sees how yet another spender takes out money to join the sect. She even admits that she is completely behind the world in training. Miss Lo warns the new member that if he gives away the stones and becomes a member of the sect, he may not expect any help in the form of resources or materials for various practices. Waifu continues saying that the more important thing is that she will not take responsibility for his development. She asks him if he agrees with these. She is sure that this guy will leave immediately. But this guy tells this girl that she has nothing to worry about because he doesn't need anything. In fact, his specialty is alchemy. His grandfather has already prepared everything for him, so he doesn't need anything. Meanwhile, the half-dead old man congratulates the founder on the fact that their sect has grown by one more student. But judging by the girl's reaction, this does not make her happy at all. Miss Luo replies that she is tired, so today will be a day off and tomorrow she will monitor their progress, personal followers will settle in the courtyard, and others there. Before this girl has time to finish speaking, she decides that there is no difference in this because there are only two of them, so they can just relax wherever they want. Ye Feng is glad for the day off. While the founder leaves to rest, our main character, looking after her, understands that most likely she herself is confused. She absolutely wants to help her students with cultivation practices. Looking at the new student, our main character understood that he planned to pay for him, but who would have thought that he would have such an amount? But he would not help him with the status of a personal follower. Next, we watch as Bai Lao continues to take the stunned founder to a place where she can rest. Ye Feng is not going to help with the status of a personal follower because no one is closer to his mentor. Meanwhile, our main character realizes that he didn't even ask the name of the new follower. The guy replies that his name is Leng Wu Feng. That's how they met each other. Immediately after our main character hears this guy's name, he points at himself and replies that he can call him Brother Wu Feng. He also goes on to say that he is now his student. Wu Feng at this moment does not understand what this strange eccentric is talking about. How should he even react? Because the guy in front of him looks like the least reliable of all the members of the sect. Next, these two began to settle down in order to begin to relax. Our main character immediately warned the newcomer where he had already managed to settle down and asked him what place he had chosen. In response to this, our main character is told that the newcomer has already finished the Luborka, and Brother Ye Feng can come to him for a couple of minutes. Ye Feng laughs and agrees to this invitation. Next, we watch as our main character enters the place where the newcomer has settled. With the help of critical thinking, he immediately understands that Brother Wu Feng turns out to be an alchemist. Immediately after this guy hears that our main character immediately understood his specialization, he compliments his words by saying that he is not just an alchemist, but an alchemist of the third rank. An alchemist is a maker of artifacts, a master of talismans, a master of magical fields, and the like. All of these are very respected professions in this unusual world of cultivation and magic. As long as you have a name and status, people will respect or fear you depending on your desires. So even a small pill or talisman or artifact can improve your cultivation base. Wufeng understands that he had never made anything at the request of others before. Joining this sect and meeting Brother Yifeng was truly destined by fate itself. The newcomer's thoughts continue on the fact that if our main character asks him to make something, he will immediately happily do it for him without hesitation. He already felt like a giga-chad. This newcomer's nose continues to grow larger and larger. He completely forgot that he has not yet told Brother Yefen that he is a cultivator of the peak of the 9th stage of Qi fusion. He is afraid that this might scare him away. However, after this guy informs our main character that he is an alchemist of the 3rd rank, our main character's reaction clearly does not correspond to his expectations. He looks like he has already forgotten about it. Further, Wufeng, realizing that he had just said that he was a 3rd rank alchemist, understands that the reaction of our protagonist is too weak. He believed that the guy should be confused and then note his coolness. After a couple of moments, our main character still reacted to this by asking his new friend which of the 3rd rank spiritual herbs are most useful for cultivators. Hearing the question, Wufeng was surprised. While Yefeng was studying the system window, Wufeng began to list beneficial herbs to the guy, such as bamboo demon grass, white soulflower, purple thunderfruit, illusory mushroom, and so on. While Yefeng continued to study his system window in the background, which was visible only to him, the alchemist informed him that the herbs he named were popular even among 9th rank alchemists. A moment later, we understand why our main character was interested in this, because the next moment he buys all the herbs named by his new friend thanks to his system. Another moment and a new system window notified the guy that 1,200 extravagance points had been spent, and he received bamboo demon grass, white soul flowers, and purple thunder fruits. At that moment, it all looked like an ordinary game of Fortnite, and right during this game, all the items that he had just bought thanks to the system appeared under the feet of our main character. The alchemist friend of our main character reminded him that he is not an alchemist after all, so he still doesn't understand anything about it. He in no way laughs at him, but even he saw all these herbs only in books. Meanwhile, our main character suddenly starts running somewhere, telling his brother Wu Fen that he has done a very good job, and he thinks that he needs to replenish his water balance so he will go away. Immediately after Yefeng received all the herbs listed by this 3rd rank alchemist, he immediately ran away under the pretext of running to get something to drink. Meanwhile, Wufeng did not see anything suspicious in the actions of our main character. On the contrary, he considered him not so hopeless because in any case he was very caring. Due to the concern of our main character, this guy decides that he will definitely make a couple of pills for him when he has time, in order to help our main character with his development. However, before this 3rd rank alchemist has time to retire with his thoughts, our main character appears on the threshold again. Wufeng is very surprised by such a quick return. Immediately after Yefeng returns to this room, he immediately moves towards his new friend, and in his hands he has a small tray with delicious-looking food that he brought to his friend. But upon closer inspection, this alchemist realizes that our protagonist used bamboo demon grass, white soulflower, and purple thunderfruit as an ingredient, which makes his face squirm. Immediately after this 3rd rank alchemist realizes that his friend, not very close to alchemy, was using these rare herbs as food, he immediately takes them out of the soup to save. Wufeng is simply shocked by such an irrational use of the gifts of nature. In his hand are the most valuable rare spiritual herbs that were simply soaked in water. He is glad that he finally saw them. After this guy admired these rare herbs that he had never seen in person, he again turned to our main character to tell them something important. But after a couple of moments, our main character takes these rare herbs from the hands of his friend. But Wufeng notices this only after he looks down and discovers a sudden loss. Dropping these herbs on the floor, Yefeng says that he heard that after soaking they are not so effective, but still they will be useful for practitioners. He thought that these were quite valuable herbs. After these most valuable herbs fell to the ground, our main character defiantly began to crush them with his foot, saying that since Brother Wufeng doesn't like it, then it's nothing more than just garbage. Wufeng is simply shocked because the rarest and most valuable herbs, which are very popular among alchemists of all ranks, have just been destroyed twice before his eyes. He rushes at them to save. Throwing himself at the feet of our main character, Wufeng informs him that these were the rare herbs that he had just told him about. He tries to do everything to save at least a little. After this guy throws himself at the feet of our main character in the hope of saving something, he finds himself below. He tries to look around to check if at least something has survived. But judging by the terribly dissatisfied face of this 3rd rank alchemist, not a single blade of grass could survive after our main character dealt with them with his foot, destroying everything. After a couple of moments, we understand that our main character did all this in order to get wastefulness points. For this trick, his system gave him as many as 1,500 wastefulness points. At this point, the course of events accelerates a little, but the location does not change and we are still in Leng Wufeng's personal room. Our main character continues to be there with his friend. After the guy receives a reward from the system, he realizes that for one thing he received as many as 500 points of extravagance, but for 6 pieces he spent as much as 1,200. This is straight robbery. Next, we watch as our protagonist's alchemist friend continues to lie on the ground. He tells the guy that if he doesn't understand about herbs, he should ask him, because this is gold.
While our main character continues to jump in the background, Wu Feng continues to cry, because even his grandfather had never seen such rare herbs that the guy got. But now they are gone.
After a couple of moments, our main character still approaches this guy, saying that he didn't even think that these herbs were exactly the ones he was talking about, because he doesn't understand anything about it. Next, our main character tells this guy that these herbs are gone anyway, so he should clean up and go on to rest. Immediately after this, Yi Feng runs away at turbo speed. However, judging by the next frame, the tricks of our main character do not end. This time he placed a whole bunch of medicinal herbs in hot water, which was in a wooden container. Another moment later, we watch as Ye Feng decides to take a well-deserved rest. He placed his feet in this container with rare herbs, which he enjoys. Immediately after this guy immerses his feet in this container, he lies down on the bed. Despite the fact that his hit points are taken away, he believes that this is an amazing healing herb. After we once again pay attention to the legs of our main character, we cannot help but notice one rather strange detail, because this guy's legs began to change their color. Meanwhile, moving outside, we observe how that same third-rank alchemist, Wu Feng, is standing right at the entrance to the chambers of our main character. He probably has some business. Next, we watch as he knocks on the door to our main character's room. He became interested in where Brother Ye Feng found these herbs. He believes that it is his duty to warn him. But after a couple of moments, we understand that this alchemist just wants to find out where the guy found these most valuable herbs, so that he can also get some. But he is confident in his good intentions. Wu Feng understands that these 3 types of grass can be used both together and separately, but if the bamboo demon grass and the purple thunder fruit are used together, they will create poison. This, of course, cannot lead to death, but it will be very difficult to get rid of the effects of the poison, which will certainly happen, so you should be extremely careful with these herbs. After a couple of moments, this guy standing at the door suddenly gets scared because he hears the loud voice of our main character. Ye Feng screams that his legs have suddenly turned black, and he doesn't understand what it is. Immediately after this third-rank alchemist hears that our main character is in possible danger, his patience runs out, and he knocks down the door to our main character's room. Another terrifying picture opens in front of the guy. Our main character has black legs, and in a wooden container are mixed the very 2 types of grass that together create a poison that brings problems. Ye Feng begins to panic. He asks what he should do and if it is poison in his basin. He asks him if it is still possible to save him and whether he will need to cut off his legs to save his life. A couple of moments after our main character once again hurts his friend, 2 system notifications notify him that he received 1,500 points for his prank. But the second system notification of our protagonist notifies him that he can remove the poison from his body by spending 1,000 waste points. This does not raise any questions for the guy. Our main character understands that since he received so many extravagance points, he can only show off once. He just wanted to see the effect of rare herbs, but in the end, he got this. Meanwhile, Wu Feng tells the guy that he came here to warn him that if he uses these 2 rare herbs together, they will certainly create a problematic poison together. But our main character is not at all frightened by this news because he has already received his extravagance points, and with his next action, he asked his system to use 1,000 points to remove the poison from the body. Immediately after Ye Feng commands his system to use the glasses to remove the poison, his legs magically return to normal and the poison is removed from his body. But after Wu Feng, being an alchemist, sees how the poison so abruptly stopped acting on our main character, he is very surprised because it should have been very difficult to get rid of this poison. But despite the fact that our main character managed to avoid the effects of this poison, he again deliberately placed his feet right in this liquid. Wu Feng is shocked that the guy again decided to warm his feet. In response to this, Ye Feng replies that he really wanted to relax a little because it gives a very pleasant effect. He understands that if the poison takes effect again, he will use the system. But the effect of this miracle solution really brings pleasure to our main character. He asks the system if he can help someone else if this dangerous poison affects him. After our main character asks his system if it is capable of removing poison from someone else's body, a system notification notifies the guy that this is indeed possible. Next, Ye Feng tells his friend that his pelvis is quite large. He asks him if he wants to warm his feet with him, He tries to use the maximum of his charisma. A moment later, Ye Feng, showing the free space on the bed next to him, promises Wu Feng that he will fly to the sky from the pleasure of this effect, and he will definitely help him get rid of the poison. Despite the tempting offer of our main character, this guy was not an idiot, and he understood that this was literally water with poison, and it was obviously scary to warm his feet in such a basin. It was for this reason that this guy immediately realized that he did not belong here. His next step was to immediately run away from this psychopath by saying goodbye to his brother Ye Fen. Walking away from our main character, this alchemist wondered whether he should report all this to the head. He did not know whether this herb belonged to the sect, but it was priceless and rare. Wu Feng continued to go further and further. He could not understand whether he should have snitched about all this to the head or not, but after a couple of moments, he still decided that he doesn't really like snitching. Meanwhile, our main character, who continued to enjoy water procedures, once again asked his system to spend another 1,000 points in order to remove the poison from his body. Next, we realize that now our main character wants to spend 900 points of extravagance in order to move to the peak of the 9th stage of the sphere of chi movement in order to finally continue his development. At this point, the course of events is abruptly interrupted, and we continue when the main hall of the sect becomes the scene of the event. This building looks very majestic and cool. Moving inside this huge main hall of the sect, we watch Miss Luo, who is sitting on her throne. Suddenly, the conversation turns to our main character. She has something to say about him to her servant. A couple of moments after Miss Luo finally decides that she wanted to talk about our main character, she asks the bearded man who he is. The man with the beard replies that he doesn't know this, but they should wait until time passes in order to understand what kind of person he is, because in fact, it is much more interesting to unravel his secrets gradually. According to the servant of this lady, the most important thing is that our main character is the only person who is able to regularly evoke emotions in the founder of the sect. He says all this obviously to himself. At this moment, all the thoughts of this girl are clogged with our main character, who has too much influence on her new follower and constantly keeps up with him doing all sorts of things. This girl seriously believes that this idiot, our main character, was sent to her by heaven itself in order to test her, and this Leng Wufeng also causes problems because they both deserve each other. But after a couple of moments, the conversation between these two is abruptly interrupted after a huge stream of someone's spiritual energy leaks into the main hall of the sect, which forces them to be distracted from the conversation. These two immediately decide to see where this incredibly powerful flow of spiritual energy comes from. Looking to the side, they see that this powerful flow is coming from some room in their sect. The bearded man wonders if our protagonist has just entered the peak of the 9th stage of the spiritual sea realm. He wonders if this guy might be about to make a breakthrough again. In the head of this bearded man, recent memories immediately emerge of how he witnessed the first breakthrough of our protagonist, which he made while on a flying sword. After this man thought that our main character could theoretically level up again, he began to think about whether this guy could really level up again. Immediately after a theory of what is happening appears in this man's head, he invites the lady to wait a little, because this Ye Feng is unlikely to quickly finish his business in pumping himself. Meanwhile, the streams of incredible spiritual energy from our protagonist's room continue to continuously spread throughout the entire sect. He has already reached the first stage of the chi movement sphere. The spiritual energy of our main character at the moment of his transition to a new level is so powerful that everyone around him immediately understands that he has now moved to the second stage of the sphere of chi movement. The bearded man continues to notify his mistress with each level our main character raises. He no longer has time to say what level the guy is at before Ye Feng already reaches the 8th level. But the level of our protagonist in the new sphere does not even end at the 10th stage. The flow of his spiritual energy becoming incredibly powerful tells everyone that he does not intend to stop. The old man at this moment is simply in complete shock because our main character has just reached the peak of the 9th stage of the sphere of chi movement. One more step, and the guy will be able to move into the sphere of chi fusion. But a couple of moments after our main character has only one step left to overcome, the flow of spiritual energy abruptly stops. We understand this by a falling leaf from a tree. A couple of moments after the process of our main character's transition to a new level ends, Miss Lo wonders whether the guy has really finished the process of leveling up. The man simply cannot believe what happened, because our main character this time did it in 5 minutes. He has neither the root of the spirit nor a teacher, but he moved from the sphere of the spiritual sea of the 9th stage to a new sphere. Grandfather continues to shout to this Miss Luo that this is even faster than moving to the spiritual sea realm from a beginner's position. He is the first who managed to achieve such a speed on this entire continent. Immediately after Miss Luo realizes that the fact of our protagonist's self-confidence was not so old, because this guy really does not need her instructions.
Next, we watch as Miss Luo herself begins to feel sad while sitting on the sofa. She wonders what will happen if in a few days this guy can surpass her cultivation level.
In response to this, the man replies that he praised Yefen too much, because before the lady was the most talented in their sect. But it took her 6 months to move from the realm of the spiritual sea to the realm of Qi movement. After a couple of moments, it dawns on this man that right now his task is to urgently calm down the lady, because she has seriously begun to worry that our main character will surpass her level of cultivation. Miss Luo continues to be sad, but his humble servant calms her down by telling her that this will not happen, because the higher the sphere, the more difficult it is to move to it, and besides, this requires luck, a source of cultivation and pills. The man continues to do his best to reassure his mistress, saying that in order to move into the sphere, the basic requirements are even stricter. If Ye Feng wants to catch up with her level, he will have to try very hard. Despite the fact that the man said all this, he hoped that it would be so, because otherwise for the mistress, any other outcome would be a strong blow to her self-esteem. At this moment, the course of events abruptly shifts to that very alchemist. At this moment, he walks alone along the path. I wonder if this is really his irresponsible brother. This third-rank alchemist understands that this is some kind of frightening. He has moved from the realm of the spiritual sea to the 10th stage of the realm of Qi movement in one go, which simply cannot help but surprise anyone. Even though our main character constantly skips huge stages, this guy is only content with what has been achieved. He wonders whether his brother is really a person because all this is suspicious. Immediately after this guy thinks about this, he sharply turns back and understands why, due to the guilt of Geo, his grandfather insisted that he stay in this amazing sect. This guy firmly decided that he would remain in this sect, after which he would work hard in it. Then the course of events moves to the next day. We watch how the guy stretches out. At the moment, we are watching the morning routine of our main character, who is rubbing his eyes from sleep, and in his dream he was running after some mysterious beauty who quickly flew away from him. A couple of moments after his awakening, the guy opens his window again. This time his sphere is at the peak of the 9th stage of Qi movement, and his system account currently has 310 points. After this guy sees his balance, he can't believe his eyes because he spent everything in vain. Yesterday he spent 2,000 points of waste to remove poison from the water. Now there are very few points. But after a couple of moments, our main character pulls himself together and realizes that the subject of today's extravagance has changed. Today it's some kind of pill. He immediately takes it out of the system window. Looking carefully at her, the guy wonders what kind of clear sky pill this is. He also doesn't understand what the 9 patterns mean. He wonders from the story whether this is about Shijing. But after our main character realizes that he doesn't understand anything, he immediately jumps out of his bed and realizes that the best solution would be to simply ask brother Wu Fen about it. While our main character is heading to his brother the alchemist, he immediately imagines how he can again earn himself extravagance points with his help. Plus, he finds out what it is. At this moment, the course of events ends abruptly, and we move to the same Wu Fen in whose search our main character is. At this moment, the guy is flying somewhere on a flying blade. Continuing to fly somewhere on a flying blade, the guy understands that today is only the first day in this sect, but he has already gotten sick somewhere. This guy clearly doesn't like it. Next, we return to our main character, who at this moment is very diligently looking for his brother Wu Fen in order to find out from him the information he needs about the pill. The brilliant mind of our main character even guesses to look for his brother in the bushes, but suddenly an insight comes to him. He admits that his brother could have gotten a lot of trouble, and that's why he ran away. A couple of moments later, our main character is noticed in the bushes by the servant of his mentor. He asks him if he is looking for Leng Wufen. Ye Feng asks Bai Lao whether he has seen him or not. Bai Lao replies that the founder found out that Leng Wufeng is a third-class alchemist, so early in the morning she took him to the city with her to buy medicinal herbs that the sect needed. Bai Lao immediately invites our main character to board his transport so that they can go together to these two. Ye Feng immediately thanks Bai Lao for the help he provided. A couple of moments later, we watch as our main character is once again in flight on a flying blade, and he is again very bored. He could not even imagine that the city would be so far away for another 5 hours. Next, Ye Feng decides to ask Bai Lao more about the benefits of medicinal herbs. He asks him whether he has heard of bamboo demon grass, white soulflower, and purple thunderfruit or not. Bai Lao asks our main character if he learned these names from Leng Wufeng. He replies that these plants are considered the rarest among third-class plants. They are priceless for alchemists. After hearing the feat, our main character realizes that these herbs are indeed very valuable. He immediately understands why Leng Wufeng reflected him when he added these rare herbs to his foot bath. Immediately after Bai Lao hears this from our protagonist, he suddenly turns back and asks him if he really added such rare herbs to his foot bath. Yefeng tells Bai Lao that he should just try it, because if you mix the bamboo demon grass and the purple thunder fruit together, it will turn out to be poison. If there is a chance, he will definitely get them again. Immediately after Bai Lao realizes that our main character is going to get such rare herbs for him, he asks him to be sure to leave them. And when he can get these rare herbs, a full 5 hours pass and the two finally reach the city. Bai Lao tells Yefeng that for now he can walk around the city because he needs to settle some matters here, and then he will find him. Immediately after this, grandfather informs our main character that he has urgent matters. He warns our main character not to do any harm, after which he leaves. A couple of moments later, Bai Lao repeats this phrase, but this time he accelerates many hundreds of times and literally disappears from the sight of our protagonist in an instant. Even his trace is gone. One more second and our main character understands that Bai Lao, who brought him here, has just left him, and now Yefeng is left in the harsh, lonely atmosphere in the city absolutely alone. Meanwhile, this bearded man runs as fast as he can to his destination. He is very happy about his arrival in the city because he can finally go drink beer with his friend. A couple of moments after receiving a recommendation from Bai Lao, our main character begins to really walk around the city. He stumbles upon some palace of the four seas and wonders what it is. Continuing to walk around the city, our main character manages to stumble upon some kind of blacksmith shop, continuing to carefully study everything. The guy understands that some kind of weapons are definitely being produced here. A couple more moments of war, and the guy manages to stumble upon a building near which there are a lot of beautiful ladies. The guy concludes that this is probably a great place for entertainment, but the guy is Sigma, so he leaves. Continuing to walk around this big city completely alone, the guy stops again after he stumbles upon some kind of sky auction that piques his interest. The guy asks the system that if no one from the sect is watching over him and he encounters danger, what should he do and can he die? The system replies that it provides the guy with divine protectors. As soon as our main character heard about some kind of divine protectors, who would appear as soon as he faced mortal danger, he immediately imagined a larger number of inflated giga-children. The system continues telling our main character that these divine protectors can only cope with enemies who threaten his life. The guy understands that this function suits him very well. Immediately after our main character realizes that he is under reliable protection, he enters someplace, and since he cannot ask Wufeng, he will probably find someone who understands pills. A couple of moments after our main character decides to independently find a person who understands pills, he walks into a random place where he is immediately greeted by asking how they can help him. Our main character immediately replies that he has a pill with him, and he would really like to know if it can be sold at auction. He is told that the gentleman who is engaged in appraising goods is nearby. Immediately after our main character is sent to the 6th grade alchemist, we watch a grandfather who really likes to blow smoke. He asks the guy what goods he would like to sell. Before us is an alchemist under the name Cao Anshan. Meanwhile, our main character replies that he would like to sell the pill of clear sky. Immediately after that, he throws the pill to the appraiser on the table. However, after this evaluator, being a 6th rank alchemist, examines this pill, he replies that it is just a 3rd class clear sky pill which did not impress him very much. But looking at this pill even more carefully, the appraiser notices 9 patterns on this pill, which means that this is a pure sky pill with 9 patterns, which immediately changes his facial expression. But all these words do not give our main hero absolutely any useful information. He only asks the appraiser in front of him whether the pill he brought is very strong, because he does not understand this. The appraiser replies that this is so, but in order to make this pill, you need to pay attention to many different subtleties, because if you make one small mistake, then the pill is over. The 6th rank alchemist trembles all over and continues to say that even though this pill is 3rd grade, it can only be taken by cultivators of the sphere of influence, the sphere of chi movement, and the sphere of the spiritual sea. The appraiser continues to greedily examine this pill. He understands that there are really 9 patterns on it, so its effect reaches its maximum. Tears begin to well up in the eyes of this appraiser. Previously, this appraiser saw a 1st class pill, but there were only 8 patterns on it. All these numbers of patterns do not give our main character any information. He asks the appraiser what this means. The evaluator, with his tongue hanging out, replies that a perfect pill is a pill with 9 patterns, and a pill with 1 pattern has only 10%, with 2 patterns only 20%, and so on. Our main character continues to not understand these damn patterns. The appraiser continues to say that he has not yet heard of anyone being able to create a pill with 10 patterns. except perhaps the lowest quality and first class.
The sixth-rank alchemist continues to say that the effect of a pill, even with one pattern, is much stronger than taking a medicinal herb. The ability to create pills with several patterns is an important criterion for alchemists.
All these conversations give absolutely nothing to our main character, so he decides to stop everything and, hitting the table, ask the damn appraiser for how much he can sell this pill for. Having adjusted his monocle, the appraiser replies that one third-class pill costs several thousand low-quality spiritual stones. He makes the most serious appearance when voicing prices. Meanwhile, he picks up the pill that our main character brought and says that this pill not only can cleanse the body, but also has 9 patterns, so its price will be higher. The appraiser continues to say that I am accurate. He cannot say the price, so it may be known at the auction, so no exact prices can be given right now. But after our main character hears that this little pill can cost several $100,000, he is very surprised because he did not expect such high prices for such a pill. Only the personal disciple and Bai Lao spent more than 600,000 spiritual stones on this pill. Meanwhile, the appraiser is very surprised after the guy calls this pill dog shit. Immediately after our main character realizes that he can only find out the exact price of this pill at an auction, he approaches this appraiser and then throws him this incredibly expensive pill. Next, our main character, going straight to the point, asks the appraiser when they will have the next auction. He is told that it will be just today, or to be more precise, after lunch. After hearing our main character inform the appraiser that he has another one, after which he throws it away, he also asks to contact the auction organizer and tell him that he wants to put 2 pills up for sale. A couple of moments after our main character told the appraiser to put up all these pills that he brought to the auction, he left saying that he would just come back later to collect the money. As he walks away, our main character can't stop thinking that these things turned out to be very expensive. He is also very interested in how much money these losers will give him at the auction. But our main character is clearly not good at whispering. Because this man hears that he calls all of them losers, he is a little shocked, because he is a 6th grade alchemist and a master of the realm of the abode of the immortals. Meanwhile, after our main character finished all his business with these pills, he began to walk again. He understands that these pills can be eaten as a snack because they are quite tasty. Our main character continues to walk by himself and eat pills, but after a couple of moments he stops after he hears some strange sounds from the side that he can't get past. Looking under a huge tree from which some strange sounds were coming, our main character sees a small puppy who is probably not in his best condition. He whines pitifully. The cute puppy eyes of this poor fellow simply cannot help but stop our main character. He immediately stops in front of him and reaches into his pocket in order to somehow treat the dog. Next, our main character sits down in front of this dog and tells him that most likely their meeting was predetermined by fate, so now he will only be with him. Meanwhile, the guy takes out a pie. A couple of moments after Yifeng takes out a huge pie that he was carrying with him for some reason, he begins to feed this puppy because he was probably very hungry judging by his appearance. After all, the guy understands that he needs to spend 10,000 pills of clear sky. They can gather 4 of them in a sect and gobble it up by both cheeks, and now he also has a dog. He will need to spend the pills again. Our main character also thinks that someday, people from this world will finally understand that they live worse than dogs. He wonders what will happen to them after realizing this. Meanwhile, Yefeng continues to caress this poor dog who was unhappy just recently, and now she has eaten a pie and is being caressed by Elon Musk of this time, who will take her to his place. One more moment and our main character turns into a psycho who tells this dog to come with him because she needs to be bathed, and then she will help him with his plans. At this point, the course of events ends abruptly, and we watch as our main character walks again, but this time with a dog in his arms, he abruptly stops at the temple. Immediately after our main character takes this dog as his companion, he walks around the city as before. But now both he and the dog are much happier because now they are not alone. But suddenly our main character is stopped even before he has time to get up. He is informed that, unfortunately, he will not be able to get into the tavern while there is a dog in his company. But our main character is not at all embarrassed by this. As if nothing had happened, he asks this guy how much the most expensive room in this place costs, because he wants to give his new dog a bath. But the guy who doesn't let our main character in continues to stand his ground. He once again tells our main character with a dog in his arms that he won't let them in for any money. This answer from this terribly harmful tavern worker clearly does not suit our main character, and we can watch how the expression on his face immediately changes to a sadder one. But after a couple of moments, we see water in front of us in which ducks and fish are swimming, which means that our main character still managed to solve the problem, and he made his way inside the tavern. Now this harmful worker looks much more friendly. He asks Yefen if he needs to add hot water to the bath. The guy only asks him to leave immediately. Meanwhile, our main character continues to watch his new dog happily bathe in a huge wooden bathtub with all sorts of entertainment inside. Suddenly, our protagonist's system notifies him that his behavior does not correspond to the behavior of a spendthrift. The guy realizes that he rented a room and paid 10 times the regular price. Next, our main character asks his dog why she is looking at him. He asks her to wash herself faster, because then she will go to work. And if not for her, another 100 spendthrift points would have come to his balance. After a couple of moments, our main character pulls his dog out of the hot bath, saying that this dog is very stupid, and if possible, next time he will add brains to this dog using the system. At this point, the course of events ends abruptly, and we continue when we begin to watch our main character's new dog deliciously eat a lump from his new bowl. Ye Feng, watching all this, continues to call his dog stupid. Moreover, she doesn't care what she can eat. That's why this is a stupid dog, because she absolutely doesn't care what she can eat. Our main character continues to watch his new friend, the smaller one, eat appetizingly. He smiles because he understands that for this, she will work for him for the rest of her life. Penetrating into the head of our main character, we understand that he has already imagined how this dog becomes a muscular giant who is ready to work 26 hours a day without breaks. But after a couple of moments, our main character still decides to break away from this spectacle and go for a walk along the street. He believes that he will probably be able to find something interesting for a walk. Next, we watch as the guy leaves his dog, which continues to deliciously eat its food while wagging its tail, and Ye Feng, meanwhile, goes off on the street in search of interesting things. But after a couple of moments, while this dog just continues to eat his food, something unexpected happens. We begin to watch something change dramatically in the brain of this stupid dog. A whole hour passes, and we watch from the dog's perspective. As she slowly opens her eyes, Ye Feng tells her to wake up immediately and continues to eat, because she only ate 2,000 pills and fell asleep. A couple of moments after the seemingly ordinary dog opens its eye, we observe how some hints of awareness and similarity with a person appeared on its face. But after Ye Feng realizes that his dog no longer wants to eat, he understands that there is no need to force him, so he simply invites this dog to sleep, because he is already too lazy to go out for a walk again. Next, we watch as our main character picks up his new dog, which he fed with pills, and carries it to bed. He cannot help but notice that being wasteful is very tiring. Having fallen asleep, our main character does not suspect that this dog, having eaten all these pure sky pills with 9 patterns, slowly begins his process of turning into the demon himself. Meanwhile, they sleep peacefully. Meanwhile, we move to Bai Lao, who at this moment tells old Xia that it was not easy for him to come here, and in the morning he was not there. The old man asks if every time he waits until he is invited to visit. Next, this old man asks old Bai if he knows that his auction has just received 2 third-class pure sky pills for sale, because this is an extraordinary rarity. He asks his friend if he knows how many patterns there are on them. Bai Lao asks in surprise if we are talking about pure sky pills. He assumes that at least 7 patterns fell into the hands of this old man. But after a couple of moments, the old man replies that we are talking about 2 pills with 9 patterns. He doesn't know who created them. But one strange young man brought them for sale. He personally went to check these pills. After Bai Lao hears that it is about some young man, he asks his friend if he knows the exact name of the young man who brought these clear sky pills. But the old man replies that he does not know about such subtleties, because not only did he not say his name, but he did not even take a cash deposit for the goods. He simply gave the pills to the appraiser and left, saying that he would return for the money. A couple of moments after the bearded man hears all this, a vague silhouette of our main character immediately appears in his head, because this is all very reminiscent of his antics. The old man continues saying that based on the information he heard, this guy doesn't care about these pills at all. He assumed that this is some spoiled youth from the Holy Land or a secret sect. Immediately after Bai Luo hears another description of this young man, the silhouette of our main character in his head becomes incredibly accurate, and he understands that we are talking about him. After Bai Lao understands who he is talking about, he gets up from his seat and calls old Xia to come with him and look at one of his acquaintances. Old Xia does not understand what he is talking about. After a couple of moments, Bai Lao asks his friend if he knows their sect founder. He continues saying that he wants to introduce him to her personal follower. Old man Xia does not understand what this is about. This bearded man's old man continues to ask what could be interesting about this follower, in response to which Bai Lao sighs and convinces his old man that he doesn't understand. At this moment, the course of events moves to another place, but the passage of time is the same. We observe what is happening at this time at the auction of the Heavenly Vault. We see Miss Lo there. The girl tells Wu Feng that she did not think that when she takes him with her to buy herbs, she will stumble upon a clear sky pill with 9 patterns, which is an incredible rarity. Miss Luo continues saying that for her students, these 2 pills can be of great benefit, and no matter how much she has to pay, she will definitely buy them for her students. Wu Feng is shocked by this. After a couple of moments, we are transported into the head of this lady. We watch as she has already imagined how our main character throws himself at her feet to also thank her for buying him pills. These thoughts make the founder of this sect very embarrassed, but at the same time they move her forward. She hopes that her student will thank her for this in full. Then the course of events stops and we return to this couple who like to drink together. At this moment, they are on the territory of the sect. They are trying to reach someone so that the doors will be opened for them. His old man immediately assumes that the student can simply sleep, but the man understands that a qualified monk cannot waste such a precious resource as time on some kind of sleep. Immediately after, Bai Lao, confident that our main character is not sleeping, understands that he needs to act. He knocks down the door to the room to find our main character to introduce him to his old man. A couple of moments after this man bursts into our main character's room, he sees in front of him a strange dog bowl filled with food that definitely wasn't there before. Next, this man with a beard continues to look around this room in search of our main character. He manages to find him lying on the bed, and the dog who owns this bowl is lying on the floor next to him. But after these 2 burst into our main character's room with such noise, he still wakes up. He asks Bai Lao if he is done with his business in the city. A couple of moments after our main character wakes up from his sound sleep, he looks for his dog, finding her on the floor. He notices her strange, rather human smile. Immediately after the guy finds his dog, he asks this stupid dog why she didn't finish the pills he gave him. He continues saying that he knew that this dog would fall asleep again. However, this dog has already noticeably wiser, and after our main character ordered her to eat the pills again, she simply threw them aside with the help of her backside, showing that she no longer wanted them. Meanwhile, Bai Lao is in complete shock. The 3rd class 9 pattern pure sky pills, a similar treasure he had kept as a family heirloom, and this dog just didn't want to eat them. Old Xia and this Bai Lao's friend were no less surprised by this, because he is a 9th rank alchemist and the secret organizer of the firmament auction, and the dog showed everyone that he is worse than her. But suddenly Bai Lao answers his old man that this is not just a dog. He asks the old man if he noticed that the surrounding aura of heaven and earth rushes straight towards her, which means this is not just a dog. Quite unlikely, but judging by what is happening within 1 year, this dog will become a demon. But the old man does not feel the presence of demonic forces in it, but the process was undoubtedly launched. A couple of moments after the 2 decided that this dog would inevitably turn into a demon, friend Bai Lao picked it up in his hand but did not notice any differences. It looked like an ordinary dog. Continuing to hold this dog in front of him, old Xia turned to our main character and asked him how many of these incredibly rare, high-quality pills he gave to this dog. Immediately after Ye Feng heard this unexpected question, he was immediately unable to answer it. But after he tried to count, he answered that he gave about 2,000 pills. After this old man, who was recently happy that only 2 pills appeared at his auction, heard that this guy fed his weakness as much as 2,000, blood poured out of his nose like a fountain. Immediately after realizing this, he attacked his friend, telling him that Ye Feng fed 2,000 pills to the dog. He asked Bai Lao, and this is called a disciple of the Star Soul sect. He continued to attack the man, telling him that they calmly look at what valuable pills they simply feed to the dog. Bai Lao asked the old man to calm down because this guy is rich. However, this did not reassure this old man at all. He told the man that he was one of the elders of the Supreme Star Sect. A cultivator of the 3rd stage of the disaster realm could make a breakthrough to the 4th at any time. But the bearded man tells his friend that he couldn't do anything about it, because our main character gives too much, so he simply couldn't refuse these incredibly lucrative offers. After a couple of moments, our main character asks Bai Lao to help him a little. As usual, he will pay him 100,000 top-quality spiritual stones for this. Ye Feng realizes that he has no other choice. Our main character realized that he urgently needed to contact this man. He still had 7,000 pills left that needed to be put somewhere, and the Geo dog began to be picky, so he needed an assistant. However, this man was extremely interested. He asked Ye Fen if he wanted him to help him eat these pills. He asked him how many more of these he had left. The guy replied that 7,000. Immediately after this old man heard the amount that he needed to eat, he replied that despite the fact that he is quite old, he does not have any problems with his teeth, so he is lucky for this matter. The old man of this bearded man was very surprised that his friend was so easy to buy, because he very easily agreed to this request, given the fact that he has many false teeth. A couple of moments after the bearded man agreed to fulfill the request of our main character, he poured all the pills that needed to be eaten on the table. These 2 were in shock. Immediately after our main character finished transferring all the pills to the table, he informed Bai Lao that he could start eating this huge amount of pills. After this man realized that his time had come, his eyes immediately lit up because he had an incredibly important task to absorb all these 7,000 pills that were in front of him. Despite the fact that this old man really had false teeth, he pounced on this pile of pills and then began to eat them with incredible speed. He ate them as if it were popcorn, and now the beginning of the film. After a couple of moments, our main character noticed how his dog was looking at this pile. He asked her why she was looking, because she had to hurry up and join in. Otherwise, he would make a kebab out of her. Meanwhile, old Zia, who was watching this incredibly absurd situation, could not believe his eyes because real madness was happening in front of him, and everyone who was around him were crazy psychos. After our main character realized that this grandfather took his work seriously, he immediately began to provide him with moral support so that he could eat these incredibly rare pills of the highest quality even faster. At this moment, the old man couldn't believe that these 9-pattern clear sky pills would be so incredibly delicious to eat. Even though they wouldn't have any effect on him, they were delicious. After a couple of moments, this man going into his past to remember how he used to take the 5-pattern clear sky pills was pure bliss for him. However, this man admitted that that pill did have a good effect, but it did not taste as good as this one with 9 patterns in the amount of 7,000. Immediately after this man began to cry thinking about what would have happened if he had such an opportunity. 16 years ago, immediately after our main character realized that Bai Lao no longer wanted to, he intervened. But suddenly our main character was stopped by a friend of this man, telling him that he would not understand. If Bai Lao had eaten these pills in his youth, they would have already been able to overcome the 9th stage of the disaster sphere and ascend. But now everything is different and completely different. They have absolutely no hopes for this. Tears began to well up in old Sia's eyes after he began to realize this fact. The man understood that the two of them were at the peak of the 3rd stage of the disaster sphere, even though Bai Lao was close to the 4th. But he could not overcome himself in order to break through to the next stage. Looking at these huge crowds of pills that were not going to end, these two understood that they could not guarantee that they would be able to withstand the next disaster after the 4th stage, and therefore they would not succeed and they would disappear. But then our main character intervenes, saying that he understands everything and the old man just wants to help Bai Lao. He also assures them that he will reward them well with 100,000 spiritual stones of the highest quality. After old Jia hears from our protagonist that he will reward him with 100,000 spiritual stones of the highest quality, he immediately begins to rub his eyes to see if he is dreaming. Old Jia just can't believe his eyes looking at these pills, and then he asks our main character if it's surprising he can eat these pills when he's not from the Star Soul sect. But immediately after our main character gives the go-ahead to this old man, he pounces on this pile of pills and begins to pop them into his mouth one after another to enjoy their incredible taste. Then the course of events ends abruptly because some time passes. These two, judging by their appearance, are completely tired of eating pills. But there are still a lot of them left on the table. Yefeng understands that it is still slow. Bai Lao asks our main character if those 2 pills that were auctioned in the firmament belonged to him. This man's cheeks were already starting to hurt, so he slowed down his pace. Immediately after our main character hears this question, he throws 2 pills and answers that everything is correct and they really belong to him. One insignificant pill can be sold for 100,000. He decided to see which idiot would buy. Meanwhile, old Zia, having already turned into a koala, continued to eat. He understands that 100,000 low-quality spiritual stones for one such thing is actually not that expensive. He is surprised by the guy's opinion. A couple of moments after this, the course of events suddenly shifts on the street, and we watch as the founder of the sect has almost reached the main hall of her sect, along with a 3rd-rank alchemist. Next, we watch as these two are already holding in their hands the very 2 pills displayed by our main character. She already feels that their 3rd room is on the 2nd floor on the east side. Wufeng can't wait any longer. He understands that his elder brother won't even believe that their generous founder spent so much money to buy such jewelry for her beloved followers. Another moment later, and we watch as an incredibly pleased Wufeng climbs the stairs as quickly as possible to tell our main character the incredibly good news. After this guy finally finishes climbing the stairs, he stands on the threshold with a box and asks our protagonist to quickly take a look at what they were able to buy at the auction. Meanwhile, the founder of this sect can't stop thinking about what kind of facial expression our main character will have when he receives this incredible gift from her. Not everything can be bought with money, even if he has a lot of it. Next, we watch as the alchemist informs our main character that his mentor bought him a pill of clear sky, but he suddenly falls silent and the mentor asks him why he stopped so abruptly. But in response to a question from his mentor, this guy does not find the right words to describe what is happening in front of him right now. Instead, he simply points his index finger at the room. These two see a simply terrifying sight as all four of them, including the dog, are already choking on this huge amount of pills. They no longer have any room left to continue absorbing them. At the same moment, when the founder of this sect sees this terrible sight, her heart immediately breaks and her hand immediately lets go of the box inside, which contains only one pure sky pill. From seeing the terrifying sight, the mentor's mouth begins to bleed, and for some time she cannot find words to describe what is happening right now in front of her. After a couple of moments, everyone who ate these pills finally noticed that it turns out that someone was visiting them. Immediately after they see their mentor in front of them, they abruptly stop eating. After a couple of moments, the founder of this sect looks down incredibly sadly and realizes that everything she tried to do for the benefit of her students turned out to be just a complete waste of money. Then the girl realized that for the pills that her student put up for auction in order to make fun of whoever would buy them, she fought tooth and nail. Bai Lao answered his mistress that everything was so. This founder then says that she thought that if she could acquire something like this, it would help her restore her reputation, but it turned out to be as bad as it gets. After all, instead of doing a good deed for her students and restoring her reputation, she was only called an idiot by one of her students. She asked Bai Lao if she looked like a non-entity. Bai Lao understood that it was vital for him to support his head right now, which is why he told Miss Luo that he did all this for his own students so that she definitely does not look like a non-entity. But after a couple of moments, this heartbreaking conversation was interrupted by an alchemist of the third rank. Placing his hands on the table where all these pills were, he wanted to ask something important from everyone around. Looking at this incredibly large number of pills of the rarest quality with 9 patterns and drooling on them, this guy asked everyone around him if he could eat all these pills on the table. Immediately after these two old men heard that this guy wanted to join the mass fall, they were immediately happy because finally, at least someone would join them in their difficult task. After a couple of moments, our main character approached Wu Feng and whispered in his ear that he, of course, can eat them. Moreover, he can eat them as much as he wants and as much as his heart desires. Immediately after Wu Feng received permission from our protagonist to eat these incredibly rare pills, he immediately ran into them because he would be able to improve the cultivation sphere with the help of them. They tried to stop this guy because he ate them too quickly, but this did not last long because then we watch how some pills begin to roll down the table and are attracted somewhere. Next, we watch as our main character's poor dog opens his eyes in puzzlement. She realizes that all these pills, for some strange reason, are beginning to be attracted to her. Wu Feng, after he realizes that these pills for some reason begin to be attracted to the dog, begins to become sharply worried, because if he allows her to eat these pills, then he will die from the torment of his conscience.
Next, we watch as this guy immediately rushes to this dog in order to prevent him from eating these incredibly rare pills at any cost. But the dog itself is not eager to continue eating them.
A couple of moments after one of the pills hits this dog due to gravity, he displeasedly rubs his muzzle in pain. Moreover, she makes it clear that he will not eat these pills anymore. Immediately after Wu Feng sees this dog's reaction to such incredibly rare pills, he simply cannot believe his eyes because the dog just refused to eat them. Ye Feng watches it all. After a couple of moments, old Zia approaches the founder and tells her that, for example, he takes money from people and provides them with services for it. But something is wrong here, because she, as a mentor, should take care of the students. Next, this old Sia especially approaches Wu Feng and tells him that 2,000 pure sky pills with 9 patterns for some dog is simply incomprehensible, because this is a terrible waste. A couple of moments after hearing this, Wu Feng approaches the dog and, grabbing it by the scruff of the neck, doesn't understand how he could end up being worse than the dog. Meanwhile, the guy notices that she ate faster than them. After our chief huntsman's pill-eating gang was replenished, he happily told them all that they urgently needed to speed up in order to eat everything that was left on the table. Meanwhile, the founder continues to sit and watch all this devilry that is happening right in front of her. She wonders how she could recruit such students into her sect. Immediately after this, the course of events is abruptly interrupted and we continue. When time accelerates a whole hour forward, all the people who were engaged in eating pills are lying on the ground and trying not to die. Our main character, looking at this very sad picture, understands that there are still not enough people to get rid of all the pills, because there are still about 2,000 left on the table. After a couple of moments, our main character turns to the side and sees his mentor in front of him. Immediately after this, an idea appears in his head, which Miss Lo herself is clearly not happy with. Immediately after this waifu catches the eye of our main character, she crosses her arms in front of her and tells the guy not to even think about her, also joining in the process of eating pills. But our main character, realizing that he needs to meet the deadline, begins to move pills towards her, telling his master that she only has 2,000 pills left and she can definitely help. Taking one of these pills in her hand, the girl says that she can simply buy everything that is left because she can send these 2,000 pills to her father's network. They will definitely help cultivate talents. But the guy immediately tells his mentor that he is not going to sell these pills. And it's not about her specifically. He simply cannot take money for them. This is a product of waste that the system gave him. The guy understands that if he sells what is left, the system will deduct his extravagance points from his account. But the founder is not going to give up. She offers our main character to pay 10 times more for it. Immediately after everyone else hears that the founder is going to pay for all the pills that were left on the table for 10 times their value, they raise their heads in surprise. Old Zia begins to wonder how a master can even talk about money with his students. The girl thinks that she is talking to her first personal follower. He definitely has no problems with money. But after a couple of moments, this girl's anger is abruptly interrupted after our main character decides to hand her a bouquet of strange flowers in order to try to smooth over her incredible anger. Turning on the appearance mode of the Korean model, our main character informs his beloved mentor that these pills simply amaze with the brightness of the tastes, so he really wants the mentor to try them. The girl was very surprised by the fact that our main character suddenly had some kind of plate decorated with flowers. The charisma of our main character worked, and the girl decided to take one of the many pills. After the mentor of our main character decides to try these pills, the course of events immediately accelerates by as much as 2 hours, and we watch as absolutely all the pills disappear from the table. Meanwhile, Wu Feng, who also took part in the eating, understands that after all this he felt too bad. So it is vital for him right now to just lie down and give himself time. Meanwhile, our main character receives a system notification that he has completed the task with the help of Bai Tianhong, and as a reward he receives half 100 points. For the rest, he receives another 200 points. Our main character moves to Fortnite because he also receives a reward for the fact that he was able to spend the daily resource of wastefulness. For this, he receives a lot of herbs, shining stones, and much more. Another system notification notifies the guy that he can spend the received rewards by selling them. He will not receive many waste points but will be able to spend them at will. The guy is glad that now other rewards are available to him. A couple of moments later, we watch as our protagonist's mentor asks Bai Lao what she thinks her student has been doing all this time. Bai Lao cannot immediately answer this question. The girl begins to tell the bearded man that our main character does not need mentoring, and no practice, moreover, from time to time, he offers all sorts of hacks and something like that. The man responds to this by saying that he also has some suspicions, because this guy looks more like a deity of wealth than a simple student of an ordinary sect, because it is the deity of wealth who throws money around like that. Meanwhile, our main character approached Lao to tell him that he heard that he was an alchemist of the 9th rank. He asked him if he had heard anything about the herb of 9 soul returns of the 9th rank. Immediately after this old man hears from this country, his eyes open as wide as possible, and he answers that he knows very well about the grass named by our main character. Bai Lao also joins the conversation, saying that the 9 soul return grass of the 9th rank is a spiritual herb that is legendary, and it is a real rarity if not a legend at all. Continuing the explanation, the alchemist of the 9th rank continues to say to the teacher that there in the 9 soul returns of the 9th rank is widely known as the herb of soul returns, no matter how obvious it may seem. Old man Xia continues saying that the number of leaves determines the medicinal effect of this herb, not to mention a herb with 9 leaves. He has never seen such a herb with even 1 leaf. The man immersed in this topic continues to say that the spiritual herb of soul retrieval is the most important ingredient of the soul salvation pill that we see in front of us on the pad right now. Old Zia continues by saying that even if the soul was completely destroyed, by taking this pill within 24 hours, the soul can be saved from death in any possible way. The old man obsessed with this herb continues to say that it is not an exaggeration to say that the soul-saving pill is definitely the most sought-after pill among practitioners who want to break through within the realm of disaster. The man continues by saying that even if a breakthrough in this area fails and the body is destroyed, with this incredible pill it will be possible to save the soul, which can then find a body again. Immediately after the old man explains how this amazing herb works, we watch a funny illustration of how the soul is between the bad afterlife world and the earthly world typical for us. After the old man tells all this, he asks our main character why he needs all this information. Bai Lao understands that most likely the guy has something similar, because otherwise he would not have asked. A couple of moments later, the guy asks Xiao Lao if he knows about bamboo demon grass, white soulflower, and purple thunderfruit. The man is immediately surprised to hear this question from his grandfather. The old man replies that of course he knows about this, because these three types of incredibly rare spiritual herbs are extremely rare. Even large sects cannot find large reserves. He again asks why he needs this. A moment later, Bai Lao answers this old man that just yesterday our main character was making a foot bath from these spiritual herbs. The old man's surprise knows no bounds. He asks these two if they are joking. Immediately after the old man realizes that this was not a joke, he realizes that he better sit down. Bai Lao asked our protagonist to under no circumstances waste this legendary herb on foot baths. Next, the guy answers these old men that he has 3 of them, so he thinks that one can still be used for his purposes. He is the god of waste, so he should enjoy it while floating his feet in it.